Alrighty. Here is the Zoom call invite. Anybody can join. If you need to be let in, hit me up on the YouTube. Hit me up here in this chat window. All right. So we'll move that to the far left. And hey, that's me. My profile. All right. And while I wait for Ed to show up, what is there to read? Let's see. Huh. Well, I can summarize something I just read from Glenn Greenwald. How many times did you hear that a police officer, Sicknick, I think his name was, died after he had his head bashed in with a fire extinguisher by pro-Trump protesters on the 6th of January? The New York Times claimed it in two of their stories that day, and from then on, if the Gray Lady, if the paper of record editorial board thinks it's fit to print, it must be true, right? Turns out there is zero evidence for that, and that no autopsy was done on the officer, and that there is no official word as to how he met his end. Alrighty, what else? What else we got? Let's see. Let's check in with Chad Hill, who is now Chad. What's his new name? Well, let's just search for hip crime vocab. Oh, it's hip crime on Substack. Okay. So I don't need to remember his pseudonym. Chad C. Mulligan. So he's writing about, it looks like the transition from hunter-gatherer to early states. So cultivating plants was hardly a great leap forward, writes Chad. Look at those blue horns. Oh, you can't see. You can't see what I'm looking at. Here, let me fix that. There you go. Look at those blue horns on those cows. The term hunting and gathering is really a misnomer. It should really be gathering and hunting. Why? Because anthropologists have known for a long time that gathering provides the bulk of the calories in the human diet. Instead, hunting gets pride of place mostly because it's more sexy. It's a lot more exciting pursuing elusive prey animals across the landscape than it is plucking nuts and berries from trees and bushes, or laboriously digging up roots and tubers. But throughout recent human history, it's largely been various types of plant foods and not roasted meat that has kept humans adequately fed. Even what we consider to be hunting has an implicit male bias. Women occasionally hunted too, but the prey was generally smaller, and captured with nets and traps rather than long-distance stalking with projectile weapons. This was not a hard and fast rule, however. The recent discovery of women buried with big game hunting weapons and equipment in the Americas strongly suggests that women played a larger role in early big game hunting than previously thought. This was probably because big game hunting played a much larger role in human society in general during the last ice age. We tend to overemphasize hunting, even though it contributed relatively little to the diet of hunting and gathering peoples, for a couple of reasons. First, meat, with its high protein and fat content and dense calories, is the highest prestige food item in many of these cultures, so hunting activities are prized. And second, hunting implements and the remains of prey animals are left behind as evidence for archaeologists to find, while plant foods and their processing equipment are less visible in the archaeological record. This gives us a distorted view of prehistory. As Richard Rudley points out in his Lost Civilizations of the Stone Age. Okay, what do we got here? Ice coffee, any percentage? I'm told he went back to the police station and texted his brother that he was fine, supposedly with a fatal fire extinguisher wound in his head. Yeah. So, iced coffee, any percentage? Welcome aboard. I don't recall having seen you here in the chat before. Anyway, still waiting on Ed. I'm going to send him a quick message on Twitter. I'll send him the invite here. Could be he's lost track of time, or maybe not feeling well now. He's been feeling down, I hear. Let's see. Twitter. I don't have a Twitter window open. Let's go. Here, I'm going to put this over on the other screen, because who knows what's going to pop up here, whose privacy might be violated. Let's see. Messages. That's right, envelope. There's Ed. Here are the details. Boom. Call and stream are ongoing. Alrighty. So maybe Ed will join us here in a moment. All right, I suppose I could start drawing, couldn't I? This is supposed to be a drawing live stream. This is my time to draw. I have not written the next page, so I can't get to illustrating it yet. Although there are certain things that I'll be able to use over and over again, like Derek in his wheelchair. I'm going to need a lot of pictures of Derek in his wheelchair. I guess what I'm going to do is practice drawing his full disguise outfit. So let's see. Let's get rid of the dialogue. Wait a second. Where's that last one? Huh. I have no idea. There we go. Right there. Ed via Twitter says, I shall be joining you presently. Alrighty, let's get rid of that screened background as well. Hey, here's an idea. Why don't I put on the glove and pull out the stylus rather than hunt around using the trackpad on a Surface Pro keyboard, which is not ideally positioned. Let's see. Boom. No. That one? There we go. Okay. So let us now grab the tab mate, which takes a full agonizing 10 seconds to turn on. Da-da-da-da-da. All right, it's on. We zoom in. And we screenshot. Control print screen. Here we go. And let's take this over to Fresco. That was yesterday's. Start a new one. Okay, current screen size, please. Alrighty. And let's put in our reference image. That would be in Documents, ShareX, Screenshots. There we go. Okay. All right. Let's see. Let me get the Zoom call window where I can see it. I guess this is it. my little Quicksilver hair flip going. All right. Oh, let's see. Go away over there. It's probably going to go away when I start drawing, won't it? Yeah. Okay. All right. We need a hat. Like a straw fedora, I think was the agreed upon accessory. So I'm going to find an image. Oh, there's a bunch. How about something like that? All right, because I got to draw it again and again, so I got to practice. You know what I'm saying? Got to get comfy drawing that. All right. So again, Control, print screen. This is coming from the headcovers.com men's natural straw fedora website. I mean, that's not the whole website. That's Headcovers Unlimited is the website. So let's bring it in. There we go. All right, let's flip it. I kind of distorted it, didn't I? Let's see, is there just a clean horizontal flip? There we go. Haha. All right. I'll set that over there for now. I guess we'll have to set it over here. Done. All right, now I'll just draw on the same layer. What the heck? All right. Yeah, let's see. I hear some noise.
Mic check.
Check, check. Sounds good.
Hello, KMO.
Hey, Ed. Welcome home.
Thank you very much. Today's actually day one of my freedom, free from self-isolation quarantine.
All right. Well, you didn't have to quarantine online, too. We could have talked before now.
Very true, very true.
So, is it all right if I display your Instagram account?
Oh, yes. Okay. That's a public.
So, let's find it. This is not it. Let's see. I don't have an Instagram window open. Okay.
It should just be Edward_Casimir.
There you are. Come on. All right. Can you see what's on my screen on the live stream?
I I'm just currently engaged with you on the phone,
Oh,
but I'll sit at my computer and check out the live stream and let you know.
be sure to mute mute it.
Yeah.
Alrighty. In fact, it'll be helpful to have you looking at the live stream. Then you'll know what image is on screen better than I will, because there is quite a delay.
Very good. Logging on the computer, YouTube homepage. Oh yeah, there's a picture from my trip, 2019 trip to Oaxaca.
Oh, this is not
State.
recent. This is at the top of your
No, I'm
Instagram
starting-
feed.
Yes, I'm starting to do a thing because Google Photos likes to say, "Hey, this is what you were doing 3 years ago,"
Oh,
and so sometimes I see nice images in Google Photos. Shows me from the past, and then I feel inspired to share them. So that was from my penultimate trip to Mexico.
hopefully not your penultimate trip. Hopefully you'll go again.
Yes, sorry, I misused that word. I mean my not the last one, but the one before the last one.
Yes, your second to most recent.
My second to most recent.
Is there
yes.
is there a more economical way to phrase that? That's a lot of words. Second to most recent.
I tried with penultimate, but
Yeah.
I failed.
Well, don't be too hard on yourself. Oh, what does this picture remind you of from your 2019 trip?
On my 2019 trip, I had a stopover in Mexico City. It was my first time in Mexico City on my way back to Montreal. I'd gone to the provincial capital of Oaxaca City, so this was on my trip back, and I had a good 16 hours in Mexico City. So I hopped in an Uber and went downtown and went museum hopping, and it just reminds me of the rich art and culture scene in Mexico City. I think that was in a former governor's mansion, which has now been turned into a museum.
Mm-hmm.
And Mexico has a very rich tradition of political murals. So Diego Rivera, Frida Kahlo's husband, being one of the most prominent muralists. So this is within that tradition.
I saw the movie where he was portrayed by Alfred Molina.
Okay, what's that movie?
Which one was that? That might have been Frida. That might have been the one with what's her name?
Selma Hayek.
Yes. Well, hey, let's check.
Frida Kahlo is pretty much deified in Mexico. She's like a saint, a Mexican saint. You see her image everywhere.
How do you spell there it is, Diego Rivera.
Like San Diego and Rivera. They were quite the power couple.
When was that? Frida, yep, 2002. Yep, that was the one. You know, she's in a Amazon Prime original movie with Owen Wilson. Or is it Luke Wilson? I get him confused. Who's the blonde one with the broken nose?
Owen Wilson. He's the guy who says, "Wow."
Yeah, yeah. So he and Selma Hayek are in a reality bending Philip K. Dick style Amazon Prime original movie called Bliss.
Okay.
And let's see. So
did you say that's written by Philip K. Dick?
No, it's in the style of Philip K. Dick. It's they're jumping between different realities, and you're not sure what's real. I mean, it's very very familiar stuff these days, but it owes a lot to Philip K. Dick. So I'm thinking the images that you have up here in your feed are in reverse chronological order, right?
Oh no, almost every single one of them, except for the girl and the skeleton baker, are from my most recent trip. And
Right.
yeah, they're in reverse chronological order.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. So let's back up to what looks like the first of them. I guess that'd be this one.
It would be after the Christmas tree with the lights on it. Yeah. So, oh yes, that's from San Pancho.
What is this? What's going on here?
Well, Mexico has a tradition of these little banners. They'll string them up. So I've never seen it. So each line, you can see the line has these little. I don't quite call them flags, but decorative banners that hang down.
Mm-hmm.
So you would see that at the entrance, let's say of a courtyard. And so it's the traditional one is paper cutting, and but in this one somebody has they've very creatively organized them so it looks like a flower. Like that's not the common way of using. Usually they're just presented horizontally,
Mm-hmm.
but so this is in kind of a town square in a beach town, and
How large
me
is this?
looking up. That would be about 30 feet wide.
Okay.
So
You're talking
we had
diameter, not
walk.
radius from the center.
Yeah, bigger than you could fit. This was and there were a bunch of picnic tables under this thing. Like there were a
Okay.
good 8 picnic tables underneath it.
Very large. Right on.
We had just walked from the town we are staying on along the coast through jungle and over beach to get to this next town, and I was very I was suffering from the heat at that point, so I had stopped to take a rest. I, I almost had sunstroke at that point.
Well, you
Grab
are
a
from
beer.
Montreal. It's quite a change in climate for you. So, who's we?
I have a friend. I met a friend there. A friend of mine from our community in Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
A platonic female friend, but it was convenient for us to. We stayed at the same Airbnb in separate apartments,
Mm-hmm.
and it turned out very nice to have a travel companion and somebody to go on excursions with,
Yeah.
and to also navigate the whole traveling during a pandemic. There was a lot of we had to do a lot of make a lot of decisions and figure out how to our government started to come down hard on international travelers. They said it was because of the strain, the Brazilian strain and the UK strain and the South African strain.
Mm-hmm.
So also the Canadian society sort of started to vilify travelers. And so we had to change our plans, and we had a lot of having to keep up with government pronouncements and get on the phone with our airlines. So it was good to have a friend to be with, to discuss those weighty decisions with.
Right. So, did you set foot at all in the U.S., or was it just Canada to Mexico?
It was definitely because I had a lot of cancellations for my flights. So I ended up it was Montreal, Chicago, Denver, Puerto Vallarta,
Okay.
and then the reverse to get home with a motel stay in Chicago on my way back.
Ugh. So you had to go through customs then to get into the U.S.
Yes, we actually have at our airport, the Pierre Elliott Trudeau International Airport in Montreal. There's a whole section dedicated to USA departures, and we've invited U.S. customs officers to install themselves in our airport. So you actually enter kind of U.S. You're under U.S. authority once you pass a certain line at the Montreal airport, and you deal with U.S. customs officials.
But you left the Chicago airport on your way back, which means you had left for Mexico, so you hadn't cleared customs.
There was two. Of course, there were two legs, like to Mexico in January and from Mexico in February.
Mm-hmm.
And I cleared U.S. customs, well, from Mexico to USA in Denver. So my flight from Puerto Vallarta landed in Denver.
I see.
And
so you were on a domestic flight within the U.S. when you landed in
Chicago.
in
Yeah,
Chicago.
I had already cleared customs at that point.
I've only ever been to the airport in Chicago. I've had layovers there, but I've never been outside the airport in Chicago.
I quite enjoyed it because my flight to Montreal was in the late afternoon, and I didn't feel like spending the day in my motel, so I trucked it on over to the Chicago airport in O'Hare and spent the day there, and walked around. And there's an exhibit there for Colonel O'Hare, who the airport was named after.
No,
and
I never thought to question who that airport was named after.
Well, we have 7 hours to kill.
Yes. So hey, let's look at a new image.
Okay.
Hope. But it's not a picture of Obama.
This is a sticker on the streets in Sayulita, just a little sticker that somebody had appended to the back of an aluminum sign.
Nice. And the streets of Sayulita. Okay, yeah, you tagged it. Right on.
Sayulita is a very unique coastal town. It's a surfer town north of Puerto Vallarta. So this is looking down from my Airbnb window.
Mm-hmm.
And we got a really good deal on our Airbnb. And it turns out because it's on a bit of a developing area of Sayulita. So you see a bunch of gravel there. That's because there was a construction project going on during my whole time there. So it was fun learning Mexican small-scale construction methods.
What does the guy in the white shirt have in his hand there?
I don't see it very clearly. Does he have the rein of the horse?
He does in his left hand, but he's holding some long rod type thing in his right hand.
I'm afraid that the resolution, I can't see it very clearly. And that was just a really quick out the window, grab a photo. Oh, there it is. You're zooming in. Yeah, he appears to have some sort of stick. Maybe he hits the horse with it to make it go faster. Definitely has spurs on his boots there.
Oh, he does have spurs, yeah. All right. Kind of wonder what the story is with these guys. We got cowboy hat, boots, and spurs man, and we got baseball cap kid. Although he is wearing proper boots for horseback riding as well.
We didn't love that spot. It was very, very busy. I think that was the road where the trucks would go down to get sand from the riverbed. So when you're doing construction, you need sand for the concrete mix.
Mm-hmm.
So there were very often loud trucks passing by, coming to pick up sand at the river.
Sayulita. Alrighty. Next. Yum yum. Corn and chicken. Grilled.
There's a bit of a delay here for me. Oh yeah, that's asado chicken. Pollo asado a la carbón. So behind me, when I was taking this picture, there was a memorial service for a woman who had passed away. So that was because Mexico, you wouldn't necessarily know, besides the face masks, that there was a pandemic going on. So, like,
I noticed these two women are not wearing masks.
Nope.
What was the percentage of compliance here?
Well, the thing is, so much of life happens outdoors in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe that when you're in a ventilated area, I don't think you need to take that many precautions other than social distancing. So, but indoors there was a lot of compliance, but like the restaurants and the commercial establishments, I think were the most concerned about complying with the state regulations. But outdoors, there was less concern about mask wearing. And that's actually what the main reason I felt comfortable going to Sayulita is because I knew I would be spending almost all my time outdoors.
All right, and here, what is this?
On
A surfer dude? What's that?
on the beach in Sayulita. Sayulita is outside of the Bay of Bandara, so Puerto Puerto Vallarta is deep inside the Bay of Bandara, so it makes the waves very calm. But Sayulita is on the outside, so there's no shelter from the waves of the Pacific Ocean. So it's the premier surfing town in Mexico. Yes, Puerto Vallarta.
All right.
So if you zoom out more, you will see, and then south of there, you will see
Oh yeah.
the bay.
Let's go way out so we can see on the whole grand scale of the country. Oh, okay. I got you.
Yeah, it's a very deep bay, and that's the city is based in the city of Puerto Vallarta is in the center of the bay, and that's where the international airport is. And there's a lot to discover around that bay. I'm very partial to the whole Bahia Banderas and all the different locales around it. And I had visited Sayulita once in 2018 with my daughter, and I decided I would like to spend a month there.
All right.
I always prefer the satellite view.
As opposed to the, I guess this is a drone shot.
I mean, before you were showing the road map view,
Oh,
which
I see.
of course you don't get all the detail, and there is a lag, so I've seen. We didn't spend much time at actually this beach, but because there's a bunch of sort of almost deserted beaches to the south of here, so our daily routine was going to those beaches.
How would you get there?
Just by walking. That was part of the adventure, is walking through the jungle to get there.
Ah, thus the heat stroke, or near heat stroke.
Yeah, well, it was going from one town to another about 3 kilometers. So if you're going in the right direction. Yes, we're moving now through the jungle, and as you go further south, you see these beaches that we frequented.
Now stop me when we get there.
All right.
Ooh, pool.
This is the small first beach, but then we go further, and then we get to my favorite beach where I spend all of my time. There was one plot of land there for sale there's my beach.
This one.
Yes.
All right.
I actually started there. That you got to the end of it. I actually started jogging on day 3, which was a real accomplishment for me.
Nice. All right.
Playa Pátzcuaro.
And now San Pancho. What is this, marble?
Yeah, this was on our walk.
Rock veins.
It was just a piece. Yeah, rock veins along the beach. Random beach shot.
Uh-oh. What have we here? Oh, okay. This gives us some scale to that first image. Nice.
It's almost fractal in a way because Puerto Vallarta is the more touristy town, like with all-inclusive hotels and like with cruise lines that come in.
Mm-hmm.
So the hip people, the bohemians, the surfers, they go to Sayulita, where
Right.
things are more authentico. And
Good to
and then
know.
San Pancho is for people that are too cool for Sayulita, people that are done with Sayulita.
Oh, okay.
It's the next town over.
When you're
And then,
over
you know,
Sayulita, you go to San Pancho, huh? Let's see, where's that?
It's it's to the north of Sayulita. You see it, it's the next little town. You got it. I walked there, so it's not that far.
Let's see. I'm not seeing it.
Okay, if you zoom in, it's really walkable.
There's San Francisco.
Sorry, San Pancho is like the colloquial way that they call it.
Oh, I see. But
It's the formal name is San Francisco, but for some reason people call it San Pancho, and it's named after the same Saint Francis that San Francisco, California is named after. Saint Francis, the one who
the one
had
with all
a
the
special
animals?
relationship with animals.
Yeah, okay. Gotcha.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's increasing as you go further north. Every town gets increasingly smaller. So then there's Lo de Marcos and then Chacala, and each one is more affordable, but the Wi-Fi gets choppier with each town, following town.
Just, what is it? Skylink, the Elon Musk satellite network. It's rolling out. They don't have all the satellites up yet, but the service is starting. That's going to change a lot. I mean, that's going to make a lot of very affordable places available to people who make their living online.
Exactly. Yeah. And each one of these towns is progressively more affordable to the next one, and smaller.
Oh, well, this is pretty big.
Then the next one is Chacala. That's as far as I know.
Okay, well, this is Playa de, how do you pronounce that? Guayabitos?
Oh, I never got up that far.
It's pretty big. And Paraíso?
We might have missed Chacala then. This is like outside of my my zone of exploration.
All right. Cool. Let's go back to your photos. Talk about this. I love this photo.
This is the streets, just a street in Sayulita. Sun in the process of setting, golden hour, and a lot of the streets are cobblestone like this in Puerto Vallarta too. They just hammer rocks into the ground to make roads, it looks like. Just nice. A normal side street in Sayulita with the sun starting to set.
Very pretty. All right. Next up is a close-up of a page of a book. Continue to grow in spite of all indignities. Frankl is fond of quoting Nietzsche. He who has a why to live can bear with almost any how. So this is from Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl?
Yes, that's a book that...
Actually, it's quoting Frankl, so it's got to be about. It can't be Man's Search for Meaning.
It's the preface to Man's Search for Meaning.
Oh, I see.
Somebody wrote it, it's like the 8th edition or something, paperback edition.
All
And
right.
I had a project with my daughter, which was to read this book together. Like, and
Mm-hmm.
then that was our stay in touch with each other while I was vacationing. Is that we would read that book together and discuss it.
Nice.
Just a picture of a window frame with the reflection of window frames in it, and it's when the quality of light is so the quality of the sunlight is so strong, the colors change. In the they You probably maybe noticed this in Puerto Rico. Is people tend to paint their buildings bright colors because it looks good in the bright sunshine.
Oh yeah. There was some great street art in Puerto Rico, in San Juan, anyway. Oh, construction. Is this sunrise or sunset here?
This is sunrise.
Mm.
So there's the construction project in front of my home with the sun coming over the palm trees and the roosters crowing. There's a very strong sense of being connected to life, like especially with the sound of the roosters in the morning. This is sort of what I found to be very healing, just being around green plants and bright sunshine.
Particularly coming from Canada in January. I imagine
Yes.
so. Uh-huh. What's the Spanish for ceiling fan?
I don't know. This was just a Instagram experiment because I had this random picture and I thought, I wonder if I can artistify it by using the filters and the editing, contrast and saturation. I was just having fun. I was just having fun seeing what I could do with the filters and the photo modification features of Instagram.
Oh, okay. Let's hear that surf. Okay, gotta say, the audio is unpleasant. A lot of wind on microphone noise there.
This was one of the rare windy and cloudy days that we were there. Sorry about the noise.
It is what it is. All right. There's a proud one. Look at him.
This is one of the things about Mexico is you see a lot of animals running around. And for me, that's one, it speaks to the big difference between USA, Canada, and Mexico is it's life is not totally buttoned down.
Right.
Like you can walk along, there'll be places where you could walk and there'll be no guardrails to stop you from falling over the cliff, even though it might even be a park or something. But people don't go into gnashing of teeth and pulling of hair because there are stray dogs and chickens are running around. Mm-hmm. And it's very similar for human beings. It's sort of like with the scope of freedom is, I find, to be more than in my home country.
I hear you. I talk to Rose on WhatsApp every day, and her neighbors raise gamecocks, so there's roosters crowing constantly as we're talking.
Yeah, I think that's part of what might be part of the explanation for why there's so many rooster crowing. I think it does have to do with the betting on rooster fights.
Yeah. Oh, come on. You got to say cockfights.
Cockfights.
It's one of the times when you're absolutely allowed to say cock. All right.
Random flower picture. Now, I'm not sure if that's because of the some Mexican philosophy of life, or if a government becomes weaker, it has less avenues for controlling society. Like, I don't know if you've ever been to India, but
I have not.
there's a lot of chaos. There was a lot of chaos there when I was there, and it's just like it's beyond the ability for. It's a huge challenge for a government to get that sort of society into a bottle.
Yeah. Well, most social behavioral control has got to be done non-governmentally, just culturally.
Right.
We'll talk about the Octo.
Random street picture, octopus grid on windows. So obviously, I think this is to prevent theft, but caught my eye, took a picture of it. I don't have much more to say about it than that.
Well, I was hoping you would have something to say because I'm away from the computer getting coffee.
Oh, okay. Well, what I can say is that we saw whales
really?
from the shore. That was a treat.
You got a new picture up.
That's my beach.
So I've been to Mexico a couple times, but I didn't go to any touristy areas. I just, crossed by land, not even in California, like in New Mexico and Arizona. And it's pretty funny because, they just wave you through when you're going into Mexico. There's no questions asked.
Actually, at the Puerto Vallarta airport, they made me press a button. I thought it was so bizarre. They said, "Please press this button," and I didn't want to press it because obviously thousands of people had pressed it before me.
Mm-hmm. Did you press it with your elbow?
And I was in that mode where, okay, I'm in the presence of agents of the state.
Yes.
I better
do as they say. Yeah. See, yeah. I don't have that mode.
You don't have that instinct?
No. I have a very self-destructive counter instinct, which is I'm in the presence of somebody who thinks he's a big shot.
Okay. You can't tell me what to do. But I pressed the button, and it was like a random number generator. So you either get green or red, and if it's red, they inspect your bag.
I gotcha.
So it's designed to like make people, okay, I better tell the truth because I might get inspected. But they only press this after you've done your declaration. So I don't know how effective it is.
And that is a chrome hubcap.
At the bus station from Sayulita to Puerto Vallarta.
That is a nice reflections going on in the very center of the hubcap. The pebble pattern on the ground, it gets distorted. It looks pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that's why it caught my eye.
Alrighty.
We would take the most risk that we took in terms of contracting COVID was on that bus. And if you were unlucky enough to get a bus with air conditioning, the driver wanted all the windows to be closed. And we once got we would like only feel comfortable on the bus if we could keep the windows open. So he got aggressive with us because we insisted on keeping our window open, because that's where we felt the most vulnerable, with people getting on and off the bus, and some with masks and some without.
Mm-hmm. But you said there was no air conditioning on the bus?
Well, usually there's no need for air conditioning, but about 1 in 6 buses would be equipped with air conditioning, and I guess the driver was really happy about that, so he didn't like it when people would open the windows. But we opened the windows just so we wouldn't reduce our risk of contracting the virus.
Mm-hmm.
He was displeased with us.
So, I've just come back from a road trip, so I don't ask you this in any sort of accusatory way, but what tipped the balance? Why do international travel at a time of COVID?
Well, for one, I knew that at our destination it was all outdoor,
Uh-huh.
so that I could very much control my exposure to others. Because I've seen Sayulita. I mean, I've been to Sayulita and I've seen like lots of videos about it. And I believe that it has to do with inhaling the breath of other human beings. So if you're outdoors, that is obviated. It's very safe. The risk of contracting COVID outdoors is minimal. And then I was not planning on moving from place to place. I stayed at the same Airbnb for 1 month, so I could control my home environment. And it's my understanding that airports and airplanes are actually relatively safe because people are so the airport staff and the airline staff are very conscious of it and enforcing rules.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt basically it's just airport, airplane, Sayulita, airport, airplane.
Did you see the video of the family that got kicked off a plane because their 2-year-old wouldn't keep their mask on?
I didn't hear about that.
No, it's infuriating, so I won't go into it. So what do we got going on here?
This is a moonrise over my...
oh, that's the moon? Wow.
Yeah, that's just how it came out on my phone. And you see those little... You see the courtyard banners there, mm-hmm. that typical Mexican. So there's a typical Mexican courtyard with the moon rising and the Mexican flag in the upper left.
Right.
I find the Mexican flag to be very attractive. But these two buildings, the one on the left, in the foreground on the left and the right, were the source of a lot of noise for us because they were under construction. So I would try not to be there during the daytime, but it was very pleasant at night.
I bet. Oh, I like this one. This was in Puerto Vallarta.
Oh, yes, this is me. Because we had our government instituted this thing. Well, we already knew this one, that we would have to get a negative PCR test. Mm-hmm. 72 no later than 72 hours before our flight, and there were big differences in the prices. So I found one for $200, and then there was another one for just like much more affordable, like $80. But everything was in Spanish, so I just wanted to go visit the clinic myself. So this is me on my expedition to walk to the PCR testing clinic to do some reconnaissance, and I found this piece of street art, which I quite enjoyed.
Yeah, me too. Alrighty. The Undead Baker.
This was from my Oaxaca trip in 2019.
Oh, yes. Yes.
What happens is Google throws up these pictures saying, oh, this is what you were doing 3 years ago. And then I think, oh, I would like to share that with Instagram.
Jalisco.
This is the central square of Puerto Vallarta.
Good roll of
we
the R there.
We didn't stay there, but this was a large town south of Sayulita. It's actually in a different state. We're in the state of Nayarit, and Puerto Vallarta is in Jalisco. And I met an American man at the Starbucks there who said that they don't let people over 60 into grocery stores. So he was complaining to me about that.
Oh, he was over 60?
In Puerto Vallarta. Yes.
He couldn't.
And I told him, well, he wasn't allowed into grocery stores, but the tiendas, which is like the small corner stores, mm-hmm. they didn't mind letting him in. But because he's part of a vulnerable population, he was telling me how bad it is that he can't get into the only Walmart in town.
Mm.
And I said, well, you can just cross over to Nayarit. They don't have those regulations there. And he seemed a little crestfallen because I provided him with a practical solution, but he enjoyed having something to complain about.
He wanted commiseration. He didn't want a solution.
Yeah.
He wanted you to be grumpy about it with him.
Yes.
Alrighty. Clock tower. Clock tower with a tiara.
This is like the central church in Puerto Vallarta. Puerto Vallarta became famous because of a movie that Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton did, and after they shot the film, they bought some property in Puerto Vallarta, and that's when it really took off as a tourist town. The Night of the Iguana.
Night of the Iguana. Alrighty. Let's see.
I think you're all cut up, my friend.
I think so. So I'll have to scroll back quite a ways to get to my where did I go? U.S. Caribbean territory. Puerto Rico.
Another port, Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
I don't know what Vallarta means, but I know that Rico means rich. Both of them are ports, obviously.
Yeah. Let's see. Bit of street art. Puerto Rico. That's a big fort, El Morro. That's Old San Juan, the tourist area. So this was just on the glass door to a coffee shop.
Okay.
Girls! Sensual putty.
You can always tell that pictures that were taken at the beginning of the trip because the skin is still white from... I'm talking about on the pictures of you.
Oh, I was only there a few days, so...
Yeah.
I did manage to get burned, though. This is at the rainforest, El Yunque. It is the only tropical rainforest in the U.S. Park Service.
Okay.
Ah, more good street art.
That one actually is quite good.
Yeah. So this is on a very festive street, kind of near the beach, kind of near the upscale neighborhood. What's the upscale neighborhood? I can't remember the name of it. But the street is called Calle Luisa. And, while it's a street that runs through several neighborhoods, if you say Calle Luisa, people generally think of this area. And it is very colorful and very hip. It's also from Calle Luisa. Yep, and now we're just into Geb stuff. All right. And nobody's commenting. I informed Benarubber at least that you'd be on. Oh, well. I can watch it in the, later. Let's have a look at something here.
I want to pick your brain about spontaneous order.
Go ahead.
Are you familiar with the economist Hayek? I think his name is Hayek. He has...
Friedrich Hayek?
Yes, I think he propounded the idea of spontaneous order. I like this idea that, well, if millions of people are allowed to make their decisions, then there's an emergent order emerges that tends to be wise in a way, the wisdom of the crowds.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a central idea, I think, of free market economics, like allow the crowd to swarm, and the emergent behavior will tend to be productivity and good quality. Obviously, there are some problems with that, but I think that there's something to it. And I do think that there's a lot of like government bureaucrats. There's a lot of central control around the pandemic, and I do wonder if people were left more to their own devices, how the pandemic would manifest versus it being so. Because here it's like extraordinary. These are extraordinary times with the government intervening in very, very small matters. Like, for example, we have a dollar store here, and they were only allowed to sell essential what a government technocrat or bureaucrat deemed to be essential items. So you could go in and get a pack of gum or a bag of chips or a bottle of water. But if you, at the same time you went to pick up a glue gun, you weren't allowed. They would not be allowed to sell you the glue gun because it's not an essential item. So just an aspect of see, I'm quite averse to those kind of decisions being made by bureaucrats, because letting the crowd, accessing the wisdom of the crowd. And
well, my opinion of the viruses and the response to it, more importantly, is that it's so overblown, and it's just an obvious naked power grab that the government and the media, in cooperation with one another, have stoked fear of this thing. But I think if the government and the media had decided to ignore the virus or even deny its existence, and suppressed any coverage of it, that none of us would ever suspect that there was a pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
The lethality of it is so minuscule. It's such a tame, nerfed virus. But anyway, I just called up this page to show you that while very few people, like only 2 people, are currently watching this, and it might be you and me, or you and somebody else, more people take them in after the fact, which I find curious.
Interesting.
Yeah. So you will be heard.
Okay, it would be interesting to break down that viewership to see where are they, when do they watch, do they watch all of it, et cetera, et cetera.
I'm guessing not, because a lot of these videos are just me. There's no Zoom call, and I'm just drawing, and I'll be the first to admit that's pretty boring stuff. Not anything that I would sit and watch for 3 hours if I weren't actually doing the drawing. Oh, what am I doing? I'm in a web browser now, and I'm just flipping through tabs. So let's move that to the other screen. All right.
You could crinkle bags of chips and tap your nails on the desk to make it an ASMR video.
Oh, yeah, I suppose I could. Or I could whisper. I could tell a story all in whispers. Let me go get my hairbrush. I will put my fingers over the tines. All right. Okay. So I'm working on a disguise for Derek.
A disguise for Derek.
Yes.
Okay. I'm not caught up with the current goings on in Geb World, but it looks like a lot has surpassed since I last checked in.
Derek is a character from the very first strip, so you should know who Derek is. Oh, what have I done? What have I done? I see what I've done. Okay. What are you eating?
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't know that was audible. I've been indoors for 14 days. I only was able to get one grocery delivery, and so I went out and bought some corn chips and salsa and guacamole.
Stuff you can only get in Canada.
Stuff that I pined for. I was disappointed with how The Expanse ended, and I started watching Star Trek Discovery. I just finished season 1, and I was surprised at how much I enjoyed Star Trek Discovery after hearing so much
Really?
grumbling about
goodness.
it. Mm-hmm.
You found it like coherent? Like it told a coherent story?
Well, I would just say I enjoyed it. My expectations were so low because of the grumbling I heard about it, like the Klingons being different. I found the way that Klingons spoke was very bad because no language would be so slow. Like there were so many pauses between the words didn't flow together. It's a very inefficient way to communicate.
Right. Well, that's what happens when you put everybody in false teeth and 3 inches of latex, so that they can't move.
Yeah, I think the amount of information conveyed per minute in that language is much less. So that by itself should have led them to lose that war. But I just got into it. I was engrossed and I enjoyed some of the characters. I was intrigued by them. So that was enough for me.
All right. Well,
my expectations were low because of all the grumbling I'd heard.
Well, good. Low expectations are a good way to go into Star Trek Discovery. Well,
and I thought The Expanse Season 5 ended with a whimper. That's what I had high expectations for.
Really? I really like the end of this last season.
Oh, see, we're opposites in terms of Discovery Enterprise. I mean, Expanse.
I really enjoyed Amos's arc, or Timothy's arc, I should say.
Oh yes, me too. For me, that was the highlight of this season.
Now I learned after I saw the episode that the Martian with the Texan accent, what's the character's name? Alex, that he got killed because the actor had been canceled.
Exactly. I had been following that.
That was such a disappointment. Because the character continues in later books.
Yeah.
So if there is an adaptation, they'll have to find some way to replace him, or replace the role of that character.
And it was a very sudden killing off. It was just like, oh, Alex died. And they
apropos of nothing. It's like, how can we kill him off immediately?
They did something similar with Avasarala's husband. It was like a totally new character with a totally different backstory and a totally different actor. And that to me sort of like broke my suspension of disbelief thing. It brought me out of the series when that happened. So I found Alex's death to be somewhat similar.
I feel you. Hey, are you watching Snowpiercer?
I am not.
It's quite good. I'm really liking it.
What platform is it on?
Linear TV.
Okay.
I buy it from Amazon, but it's on TNT.
I gotcha. I have an Amazon Prime subscription, but what I tend to do is wait for things to come out on Blu-ray through my provincial library, and then binge watch them.
Well, it's not on Prime Video. I mean, you can't get it that way. It's TNT.
So in about 3 years, I'll look for it in my library on Blu-ray.
Plenty of other stuff to watch in the meantime. Oh, what did I do? What did I do? So we kind of drifted away from your proposed topic of emergent order.
Yeah, I actually think there needs to be a balance between allowing humans to do everything that they want to do with some government regulation. But I've heard about towns in Oaxaca, the state of Oaxaca, where because they want to protect the old people there's villages where they have set up roadblocks on the road, and they've said, like, while this pandemic is going on, unless you have business here, we don't want you visiting us because we want to protect our elders. and that's sort of a thing. That's not a government mandated decision. So I just often wonder how. Well, of course, we can't know how things would be different, but in terms of emergent order, if people were just allowed to make their own decisions about how to live the pandemic, what I wonder, like, how things would be different. I think a lot of that would happen is there'd be a lot of as people saw. Well, as you know, my own mother died, and as people saw their elders, falling to this illness, I think there would be a lot more incentive. There'd be a lot more activity of elder preservation.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like that. I think it's the old libertarian argument. I don't have so much to. I mean, I've sort of exhausted what I have to say about it.
Well, I'm trying to remember. Oh yeah, the book is The Narrow Corridor. Here, let me look it up. The Acemoglu is the name of one of the authors. Darren Acemoglu, I think. Let's see. But they have an argument. The book examines the question. Which states are likely to evolve into democracies that respect human autonomy, but which also accomplish big things. And they have a very specific formula. I should revisit the book. It's pretty complicated. But one of the things they say is that the emergent behavioral limitations that cultures evolve in the absence of a central authority are effective, but they absolutely do not respect individual autonomy at all. And they're often very cruel, like the Indian caste system.
Yes.
Let's see.
That's why I think that there has to be a mixture of the two. Like, of course, I want the airline industry to be regulated.
All right. The Narrow Corridor,
trending.
States, Societies, and the Fate of Liberty by Darren Acemoglu and James A. Robinson. So this is one of the books that I really should have as a book, but I just have the audiobook. So, books that present complicated arguments are kind of hard for me to follow in audiobook form. The audiobook is great for a novel, but for, more complicated work, I know I'm missing a lot of it because I don't have to sustain my concentration to keep moving through it. I can let my concentration drift or, let it relax, and the author or the narrator keeps reading. So I miss a lot of stuff. But I hardly ever read books anymore. So, while I'm getting 60% of the content of The Narrow Corridor by taking it in as an audiobook, that's as opposed to the 0% I would be getting if I just insisted that it's, read the book or nothing, because it would be nothing.
Right. It would be sitting on your bed table.
Or even more likely, it would just be unordered, unreserved at the library, just something that I heard about. Maybe I listen to an interview with the author and I get a little bit about what it's about, but this one's worth studying. So I noticed the Kindle is listing it at $6. Is that a special price because I already own the audiobook? Because they'll do that. Amazon says, buy both the audiobook and the Kindle version, and you get the Kindle version at a discounted price. And I do that often. Like, if I'm listening to a good book that I think I'm going to want to quote from or make reference to, I'll buy the Kindle at the same time. All right, put that away. Alrighty, well, I'm gonna go to drawing again. So,
very good. I need to have a look at my options positions.
Oh, hey. That reminds me.
Closing in 43 minutes, but I can do that while I'm on with you?
I am launching my Webull desktop app right now.
You made a good call by buying into ArcQ. Kathy Wood is like the star of the moment now. Kathy Wood is the personage behind the ARK Invest series of ETFs.
Yes, I had somebody else on the line. I guess it was the day before yesterday. We talked. We had a full 3-hour conversation throughout the whole live stream, and he had purchased ARK-K, and I noticed that ARK-K is down. I own a tiny smidgen of ARK-K through the Square Cash app. So
ARK-K is very invested in Tesla, so their fates are very intertwined. Tesla is having a rough week.
Yeah, but Bitcoin is through the roof. Bitcoin is at like 51,000 right now. Or let's see what it's at right this second. Alexa, what's the Bitcoin price?
One Bitcoin is worth $52,150 up 7.6% over the last 24 hours.
Holy crap. So, the YouTuber you turned me on to, I forget his channel's name, but his name is Charlie. He has a very distinctive way of talking. Zip Trader, right. So I bought this stock here, Genius Brands, on his advice just yesterday. I mean, he says it's been as high as 11 recently, and right now it's down around 2. So he says, just buy this one and watch it and, set a price to take some profit. This is not an investment. I mean, this is pure trading. This is, a short-term position. So I did this at his... not at his suggestion, but he brought my attention to this possibility, the stock, and I have lost $2.01 since yesterday on this.
Such is how it goes.
Yep. But okay, so I bought. This is supposed to be a just a trade, like a swing trade, rather than an investment. AMC I bought just to punch the hedge funders in the balls. I had no expectation of any sort of return on it, and I've lost $8 or almost $9 on it on my one share. But everything else I own is in the green because these are all my techno-optimist bets, basically. Well, Viacom and this bank, I just got those for free for joining this, Webull. But Jets, this is the global airline ETF. It's up quite a bit since I bought it. RQ.
Viacom is up 268%.
What is?
Viacom, it says plus 268%.
Yeah, Viacom's going gangbusters. I don't know why. I haven't really been following it because, like I say, I didn't choose to buy it. I just got it.
You're participating now in the capitalist system.
Oh, fuck yeah, I am. I've sworn off doomerism, and I am betting on the not techno-optimistic or techno-utopian future, but the definitely tech-heavy future. And I'm really encouraged by, the Jets ETF, because, airplane travel is way down, but this is supposed to reflect the health of the airline industry. Why is it up?
I think it has to do with, because the stock market is forward-looking, so it's like, how do we expect things to be in 3 months from now? So I think that it's confidence, because the vaccination program seems to be going well. There's a lot of good news on the vaccination front. So I think that reflects the good news.
So I have friends and acquaintances who are very skeptical about the vaccine and intend to resist.
Okay. But there's way more than just one vaccine. Johnson & Johnson, Novavax, AstraZeneca.
Yeah. I think Johnson & Johnson's the one that most people are going to get because it doesn't need to be frozen. You can just put it in the refrigerator. It'll be okay.
Yeah, you don't have to have a cold chain.
Right. I mean, you could use the same distribution chain that you use to distribute ice cream, basically.
Right. Whereas the Moderna and Pfizer one has to be like minus 80. And at that point, it doesn't matter if you're talking about Fahrenheit or Celsius.
Yeah. Alrighty. But anyway, this is going to be my answer to the techno doomers going forward. It's like, okay, well, Tell you what, back in 2020, I started putting little tiny amounts of money into stocks and funds, which are, which reflect the health of the technosphere.
I think you'll find that the ETFs are less volatile than the single stocks because those are, of course, baskets of stocks,
right,
which are managed. The word on the street is that the ARK funds are getting very, how to say,
overbought.
It's because they have, anytime they make a move, they end up moving the stock. So like that, when they buy or sell a stock, it has a big effect on that actual price of the stock because there's so many people they have so many billions of dollars to manage now that it's hard for them to make moves without themselves influencing the market.
Mm-hmm.
So if they start to sell a stock, then people notice that, and then it causes the stock to go down. Like that's what George Soros called reflexivity in the market.
Oh, Kathy Wood has lost faith in this stock. Dump it.
Yes. Or similarly, Kathy Wood is buying this stock, and then it goes up. But
now, as far as I know, it hasn't reached the absurd levels of Kathy Wood walked into this store at 2:45 p.m. today, and the a major player in this fund over here walked into the store 5 minutes later and left 2 minutes after she did. What did they talk about? We're not to that level yet.
It's pretty much at that point with Elon Musk.
Oh yeah,
he just has to make reference to something and it moves it.
Elon Musk is playing the role that what's his name? The Fed chairman from the late 90s. Greenspan. Alan Greenspan.
Oh, Alan Greenspan.
Yeah, people used to hang on his every syllable, and try to, read into it and find hidden meaning in his every little utterance. And he was really determined to be totally opaque and communicate absolutely nothing every time he opened his mouth.
This could be a reflection of how much money there is looking for assets to invest in.
Yeah, absolutely. The big pile of money.
Yeah, sloshing around. Look, where should I put it? Oh, here, there.
I agree. Yeah, that's what gives us booms and busts. And the people who have the ability to manipulate the markets are absolutely thrilled. It's like, oh yeah, suckers, come on board, get greedy. And now, okay, all you suckers, panic, sell, and we'll buy. And there's
a lot of confidence in what you might call the Fed backstop. So basically, that the Federal Reserve is and the U.S. government in general is so committed to the stock market not tanking that if there's any ever serious drop, that they'll be there to print the money to help pump it up again.
And I think that's correct. They'll try as long as it's possible for them to do that. They'll keep trying.
Yeah.
Let's see. Did you see the movie of Snowpiercer?
I did not. I'm only hearing it. I'm only hearing of it now through you for the first time.
Wow, really?
I've heard of Snow Crash, just to show that I'm not completely culturally ignorant.
Well, how about the movie Parasite? Have you heard of that?
The Korean movie?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Snowpiercer is the film he did before Parasite.
Understood.
So, and the director is Bong Joon-ho, and he is one of the executive producers on the TV show. So it's definitely a continuation of his vision.
Very good.
So you don't even know the premise of it?
No, sir, I do not.
Well, It is. It's set in a world where an attempt to combat global warming went too far and plunged the Earth into an ice age, but just a freakishly cold ice age. Like it's too cold to snow even at this point. And everybody on Earth is dead except for the passengers on a train that was built by this fanatic who, a rich guy who laid a track that goes around the entire world. And the train, it takes a year to make the circuit once. And it has a perpetual motion machine as an engine, so it can go indefinitely. But there's the first class passengers at the front, and then there's in the movie I think there's just first class, steerage, and the stowaways in the tail. But in the TV show there's first class, second class, steerage, and the tail. And it's a very clearly defined hierarchy on the train. The first class passengers paid a lot of money. The economy doesn't exist anymore. Money doesn't mean anything anymore, but the people who had money before the apocalypse are still the rich and pampered. And it's about a rebellion that starts in the tail and goes all the way to the front of the train. That's the movie. In the TV show...
Now that you're describing it, I realize that I am not totally unfamiliar with it. I think I definitely have seen a trailer for it. But I always thought about it as monster city trains going to war with each other.
You are conflating it with Mortal Engines, which was a Peter Jackson film about mobile cities that do war, that battle one another.
Okay.
And maybe you're also mixing in a bit of Train to Busan, which was a South Korean zombie movie, a very good South Korean zombie movie. But it takes place on a train, mostly. Okay, I need some sunglasses for Derek. Oh, by the way, Parker's in the chat. He says, hello, KOMO and Ed. What is ARK? ARK is several different investment funds, what are called ETFs, exchange-traded funds, which are managed by a team of people whose the public face is a woman named Kathy Wood. And there are several ARK funds. There's ARK Q, which is the one I'm invested in, which is in AI and autonomous technology and automation. There's ARK K, which is innovative technology. It's an innovative technology fund. There's ARK F, which is their financial tech or fintech fund. Is there an ARK W? What am I missing?
There's an ARK W, which is leading edge internet technologies.
Okay. And coming soon, ARK X. It's going to be their space, space companies.
And she's the darling of Wall Street in the past 6 months. That all of her funds have had very, very impressive returns, and they invest in all new disruptive companies. Mm-hmm. And she presents very well in interviews and she gives talks.
Although I got to say, her interviews get boring very fast.
Yeah, and then especially when they start bringing in the financial jargon that's meant to say, "I'm an insider."
So here, I'll show you what I'm doing. I'm looking for the right pair of sunglasses to put on Derek here. All right. Parker says, I watched Train to Busan. Great movie. It really is. It really is an excellent movie. There's a terrible animated prequel to it that is just annoying as hell. So it's called Seoul Station. Avoid at all costs. And apparently there's a sequel, which is also not very good. So it's unfortunate. Parker says, with Snowpiercer, I keep thinking, why? Why would a train be a solution to that climate change? It's not a solution at all. It's more like a lifeboat. But why a train? Well, one, it's based on a French graphic novel from, I think, the 70s or 80s with that premise. And secondly, because it's a very like on the nose class allegory. You know, the whole human world is encapsulated on this train. And you've got the engineer up front who knows how the tech works and keeps everything going, and he's basically a god. And then you have the first class passengers who, you know, everything is done to keep them comfortable. Then you've got the people who work on the train, who are the vast majority of people on the train. And then in the very back, you've got this group of people who are stowaways, who have no status whatsoever. And the stowaways, like for the first 2 months of the journey, were left in the back of the car, back of the train by themselves with no food or water, and they resorted to cannibalism. And so they all have that sort of in their psychology. And then in the movie, it's just a straight up, there's a rebellion, and it stars Chris Evans, AKA Captain America. So he's the hero, and he leads the fight, of the tailies from the very back of the train all the way up to the engine. And you get to see all the different places along the way, all the different, little social snapshots along the way. But it's also a story about, there's got to be a lot of agricultural production. There's cars with cows and goats, and there's an aquatic car full of fish, a big aquarium tank, basically with just a tunnel to walk through so you can walk through it. But most of it is, it's a little ocean ecosphere. And there's just so much to explore. And like I say, the movie is just a straight up fight from the back to the front. But in the TV show, they have a different framing device for the story. There's a murder in first class. And one of the people in the tail used to be a police detective, a homicide detective. So the authorities on the train go to the tail and they pull this guy out of the tail. And, when you get pulled out of the tail, you get deloused and treated very inhumanely and in a humiliating fashion. So they drag him out of the tail, and they assign him the task of solving this murder. And over the course of the first season, because he's an investigator rather than, a guy just leading a revolution, it's not just a straight shot from the tail to the engine. He gets to move around and see different parts of the train and interrogate different people. And the class allegory is even more heavy-handed in the TV show, at least in the first season, than it was in the movie. And it was really on the nose in the movie. So anyway, it's a very good show. It's well cast. Jennifer Connelly is in it, and she's surprisingly good in it. And I think Sean Bean plays Mr. Wilford, the guy who, created the train and the track and the whole survival arc. Anyway, highly recommended. You can probably watch the first episode for free. I'm thinking.
Well, I'm planning on subscribing to Disney Plus for a month so I can finally watch Mandalorian season 2.
Oh, all right. So you've heard that Gina Carano finally got the axe, right?
I did hear that.
Yeah.
Was she at the insurrection?
No, she made a bad tweet.
Okay.
No, I mean the Kathleen Kennedy faction at Lucasfilm hates Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni and the whole, Mandalorian universe. They just hate it. So they've been looking to fire Gina Carano for a long time, and she made an ill-advised tweet, and she gave them all the rope they needed to hang her with, and they did. Didn't hesitate.
This is the first time I'm hearing about intra-studio politics, but it makes sense that there would be such a thing.
Oh. Don't get me started. All right. Oh, right. Glasses. I was looking for glasses. Let's see. Now, the question is, there's a couple of things. One, they got to be opaque so you can't see his eyes at all. And two, they got to be kind of easy to draw. Now, some kind of wraparound glasses like this, that would be good. Or these. But these are deviating from the easy to draw. How about that? Let's just add wraparound to the search term. Oh, there we go. Look at that. Oh, there we go. So. You're considering buying an RV and moving into it instead of renting an apartment. Huh. How much have you researched that?
Let me make sure you're not muted.
Oh.
Sorry, go ahead. You're not muted.
You are planning to buy an RV, or you're thinking about it?
I've been shopping around. And I've been watching YouTube videos of people who live that lifestyle.
As I understand it, unless you have a this is in the U.S., so maybe Canada's different, but unless you have a very new, like late model RV, a lot of RV campgrounds won't let you stay there. They don't want to look ghetto. So if you're driving, a 15-year-old RV, keep driving. And
interesting. The one I was looking at is from 2002, so that would be older than 15 years old.
Yeah, that would be a that's great, buddy, not here, sort of decision. But again, that's in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard about the like temporary RV settlements? There's enough people who do seasonal work at Amazon warehouses that in the off season they go and they either car camp or they live out of RVs or tents, like out in the desert somewhere. Let's see.
Yeah, I've heard about these nomadic warehouse workers, nomadic gig workers, senior citizens. It's like a sign of the decline of the USA, as far as I'm concerned.
Homeless and working for Amazon, the trap of seasonal employment. Amazon camper force, jobs and RVers and work campers. Amazon delivers .jobs, camp force jobs. Assignments for the 2021 coming up. What's it like to work for Amazon Camper Force? The Amazon Camper Force program brings together a community of enthusiastic RVers and for seasonal work camping job opportunities. Your responsibilities will be in the area of picking, packing, stowing, and receiving at an Amazon warehouse.
Those people look so free.
Yeah.
And unencumbered.
Look at the expression on her face. The Camper Force program provides the following benefits. Campground provision toward your campground expense. Assignment completion bonus, 50 cents for each regular hour worked on and $1 for each overtime hour worked after assignment ends. Medical and prescription coverage available after 90 days. So how long is the seasonal assignment? Is it more than 3 months long? Or is that just,
It's probably about 75 days.
Yeah. Overtime pay, weekly pay schedule, 401k. The application period for 2020 season is closed. Please check back. All right. Text Camp Force to 77088. All right. So now we have a better search term. We'll say Amazon Camp Force. Okay, here's Wired magazine. So I haven't read a Wired article in quite a while, maybe more than a year. Meet Camper Force, Amazon's nomadic retiree army. Inside the grueling, rootless lives. I can't read it unless I subscribe. Inside the grueling, rootless lives of the RV dwellers who are spending their golden years working in the e-tail behemoth's warehouses. All right. In the spring of 1960, just after he turned 16, Chuck Stout went to work as a garbage boy at a McDonald's in Toledo, Ohio for 85 cents an hour. He swept and mopped the floors, kept the drive-in lot tidy, filled the shake machine, and washed dishes. Chuck loved the job. You know, I've read this before, actually. This must be from a couple years old. Let's see. It's from 2017. Anyway, I think he went on to have a successful career, made a whole bunch of money, and then lost it late in life and ended up working at Amazon. Ooh. In Utah, they worked as campground hosts, welcoming visitors, cleaning toilets, shoveling out fire pits, running an office. But the job didn't pay. It just gave them a free spot to park TC. I guess that's their RV. With hookups for water, electricity, and sewage, cash was getting tight. Chuck was receiving $1,100 a month from Social Security, and Barb got some money each year from her family. Neither of them had health insurance. That summer, while waiting for a check to arrive, they watched their food rations dwindle to 2 cans of black beans, a can of corn, and some iced tea. Their account was down to $8. They wondered how anyone managed to survive on the road. Then someone told them about a website called Workers on Wheels. There they found a sprawling employment network of job-seeking RVers, a community whose members called themselves workampers. A few weeks later, the Stouts were back on the move, driving west to Nevada, where they'd finally secured 3 months of full employment. For Chuck, the job meant he would occupy the lowest rung of a major corporation's ladder for the first time since he was a garbage boy at McDonald's. He didn't mind, though. All that mattered was that he and Barb were together, and that Amazon would pay them. In the mid-2000s, Amazon had a problem. Every year, the company scrambled to find temporary workers during the peak months of hectic commerce leading up to Christmas. In some areas of the country, reliable on-demand labor was so hard to come by that it resorted to bussing in workers from 3 to 5 hours away. Then, in 2008, a staffing agency came up with something new, inviting a team of migrant RVers to work at the facility in Coffeyville, Kansas. Pleased with the results, Amazon brought in more RVers the following year, expanding the program to warehouses in Campbellsville, Kentucky, and Fernley, Nevada. Amazon gave the new initiative a name, Camper Force, and a logo, the silhouette of an RV in motion, bearing the corporation's smile logo. Many of the workers who joined Camper Force were around traditional retirement age, in their 60s or even 70s. They were glad to have a job, even if it involved walking as many as 15 miles a day on the concrete floor of a warehouse. From a hiring perspective, the RVers were a dream labor force. They showed up on demand and dispersed just before Christmas in what the company cheerfully called a taillight parade. They asked for little in the way of benefits or protections, and though warehouse jobs were physically taxing, not an obvious fit for older bodies, recruiters came to see Camper Force's workers' maturity as an asset. These were diligent, responsible employees. Their attendance rates were excellent. They've had folks in their 80s who do a phenomenal job for us. Or we've had folks in our 80s who do a phenomenal job for us, noted Kelly Combs, a Camper Force representative in one online recruiting seminar. He elaborated, "You guys have put in a lifetime of work. You understand what work is." Camper Force hired aggressively. Representatives were on scouting missions in more than a dozen states, setting up recruiting tables at popular RV destinations like Yellowstone National Park and the motorhome mecca of Quartzville, Arizona, where tens of thousands of RVers camp in the desert each winter. That's probably what I'm thinking of, this Quartzville, Arizona. Let's bug out of this article. And put that, we'll say RV camping. Wow. Okay, that must be a state highway 95 because it's way too far west to be Interstate 95. Let's see. Quail Run RV Park. All right. So, of course, they're going to put the nice new RVs in their photos. But let's see if we can see any older models back in the background. Anyway, a good friend of mine lived in an RV for a few years with 2 cats. And he's the one who told me that because his RV was old, he was not welcome at RV campsites.
Well, maybe standards have fallen.
Could be.
Since then.
Oh, particularly if Amazon is involved. I'm sure Amazon would step in and say, hey, if they can get here, accept them. Because we need the workers.
I posted a link in the chat to the RV I'm looking at.
Oh, so you'll need a truck with that.
Yes. Well, the plan would be to park it and live there from April to November and then skedaddle somewhere warmer and come back in April.
Mm-hmm. Still need a truck to pull it, though. So like a Ford F-150 or something big like that, or a Ram truck.
There must be services that you can hire, or you can also rent these trucks, I suppose, for the journey from one RV park to another.
Huh. Interesting. But if you do that, then you're stuck at the RV park.
Yeah, that would be the plan. Just to be unencumbered by the albatross of a 12-year lease, so that I feel free to go live somewhere like Taiwan or Mexico during the winter months.
Gotcha.
Because that's one of the things that brings me back. Is like, well, I gotta earn the money to pay for my apartment.
All right, oh, can't look at this in the stream. All right, but I will put it on the other screen so I can see what Parker's saying and anybody else who shows up. Let's see. Parker says, 5th wheel. You got a truck that can handle that? Yeah. Parker saw the exact same thing I saw immediately. It's like, that RV don't move. It needs a truck. All right. Punishing that keyboard again.
I'm trying to hold the phone as far away as possible.
You in a serious truck for that because it's heavy on the bed, says Parker.
Yeah, I'm just kicking around ideas to see if it's feasible.
So I've been watching digital nomad videos about living in Tbilisi, Georgia.
Oh, I have a Burning Man friend who loved it there.
Well, it's very cheap.
So I've heard.
And very nice.
Yep, there are these sweet spots in the world where it's quite cheap, but you don't really have to suffer because of that cheapness.
Right. And they're really looking to attract the digital nomads because when you land, I mean, if you're from the U.S. or Canada, when you land there, you automatically get a 365-day visa. And if you just,
Beautiful.
And if you just, if you stay there a year and you want to stay longer, you can just pop across the border to Armenia, have lunch basically, come back over land and get another 365 days.
This is the dream.
So I was watching a video of a guy who had an apartment bigger than mine, and mine's pretty spacious. And he was paying $400 a month for it, and it was in the city. So I've been
Good food, good people,
Yeah.
good environment.
Yep. That's the object of my current fantasy. Although, you know, Mexico and Puerto Rico are a whole lot closer. And I have a mother who turns 82 in a few months here, so being close.
That for me is one of the big attractions of Mexico because it's like a 5-hour flight, and it's close. And Spanish, like I'm starting to learn Spanish because I know French, so I've become increasingly functional in Spanish. And one thing that's interesting is there are services here which are beyond my reach. Like I was able to get a COVID antibody test there for just $10 at a private clinic, whereas here it's at least 20 times that price. Same thing for dental services. Every time I go to Mexico, I at least get a teeth cleaning.
Yeah.
But it's like the there's low hanging fruit there. Whereas for me, some of my complaint about life in a developed country like Canada is that there's a threshold. If you're below that threshold, there's a lot of services that aren't really available to you. Like you have to at least have the median income to be able to afford things like crowns. Like I think both you and I need crowns, and
you know what
I
my
could buy
smile
a new
looks like
car.
right now, right? I don't need crowns, I need teeth.
Those are within your reach in Mexico.
They're within my reach in the Philippines too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but Mexico's a lot closer, I get you. Come on. What did the fake beards look like in Life of Brian? Oops, let's see. Okay. Let's see. There we go. Remember Life of Brian? They had the stall selling fake beards just outside the grounds where they would stone people to death because women weren't allowed to participate, but they all wanted to, so they would go in fake beards.
I do remember that. I showed my daughter the Monty Python movies, and she very much got into them.
Excellent.
So now we have a bunch of cultural references that we can share with each other.
I need to do that with my sons. Oh, go away. Here, that's the one I'm looking for. All right. That's the archetypal right there. So, control, print screen. There we go. Steal, steal, steal. That's my methodology. All right, now let's bring
All of human culture is a collage.
What'd you say?
In some ways, all of human culture is a collage.
Oh, yes.
Like a...
All right, first let's flip it. And make it a bit bigger. And rotate it a little bit. A little bigger. No, it's not going to work. I'm just going to have to draw it. There we go. Okay. Back down to here. So. So what's Jadzia up to these days?
I haven't seen Jadzia since I left for Mexico on January 7th.
Ah, what's going on with that?
Pardon me?
I said, what's going on with that?
Well, for one, I was in Mexico until February 3rd.
Yeah.
And then
that's over 2 weeks
I had
ago.
2 weeks of government
quarantine.
mandate.
Right.
I even had a member of the provincial police come and visit me. And I had to show him. It was very interesting because he was apologetic. He was like, "Oh, I'm sorry to be doing this, but I have to." And it was so my daughter can come see me tomorrow. That she might be coming tomorrow or the day after that.
Okay.
So it'll be a nice reunion.
The state has kept you apart.
Exactly.
Damn the state.
They only dropped this on us while we were in Mexico, so we were somewhat freaking out about. Because they're doing now. They're also now going to do detainment hotels. So you also have to do a test on arrival at the four airports, and then while you're waiting for the test, you have to stay in a government-run hotel. And then you'll be made to pay you'll get a bill for the days that you spend in the hotel. So it's I was very averse to being forced to do that.
Yeah.
That's why
it's not cheap.
Early. Yeah. But she should be coming tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. She's up in the Laurentian Mountains, about an hour north of here.
Maybe we should look for a ZZ Top beard. I guess he's going to need a fake nose, too. Ed, how many cats do you have?
I currently have 0 cats.
Wow.
I had a beautiful cat who was born and raised in the mountains, and she became a mountain cat, and she very, very strong body. Actually, it was a he, and I would leave my bedroom window open at night because I liked the cool air. And he could come and go as he wished, and sometimes he'd come back with big scratches all over him.
Was he neutered?
He was neutered.
Well,
But I think he would get into fights with animals in the forest. And then when I moved back to the suburbs of Montreal, he was very disoriented, and one day he just didn't come back. I always give them access to the outdoors.
Yeah, it's important for Kitty Mojo.
But I have now about 4 dozen cherry shrimp.
Yes.
And hundreds of pond snails. It was quite the challenge for me to manage my Wallstat tank while I was in Mexico.
How did you manage?
I didn't want to worry about it leaking onto the floor into my downstairs neighbor's apartment. So I moved it to my bathtub, and I put light over it and a light beside it and set them on a timer. And so that they would have artificial light on a daily cycle. And that they seem to love that. They did just fine. I came back and the whole thing was thriving.
Awesome. So that's just nature's way of saying we don't need you.
It's not. Yeah, the only input was light, and with the plants growing and this ecosystem, from bacteria on up to cherry shrimp, they thrived. Was quite happy to see that.
Your supervisory services are no longer necessary, sir.
I will post some pictures of this tank to Instagram so you can see the wonders.
So my humidifier broke. So now I just have a big pan of water slowly simmering on the stovetop all day.
There's a lot of people in Houston, Texas in that situation. They're warming their house with their stoves.
Yeah.
You're humidifying yours.
Yep. And so here's the economic calculus that goes into that. I could buy a new humidifier, but that costs money. Or I can simmer water on the stove all day, which would cost money if I had to pay my own electric bill. But since electricity is included in my rent, bit of a moral hazard there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
In communist China, they called that 吃会主义, which means eating socialism.
Yes.
So eating socialism means, milking the system for all that you can get from it. I'm wondering because Joe Rogan and Elon Musk, they had a sit down chat, and they were praising the virtues of life in Austin, Texas, as opposed to liberal California.
Yeah.
So I'd be curious to know their take now that the electric grid there is on the fritz. If they have any revised comments.
Oh yeah, has this interrupted Mr. Rogan's podcasting schedule?
It caused a big petroleum company to postpone their quarterly results announcement, which is almost like a sacred ritual for these corporations. The company's called Oxy, OXY. So, yeah. Because Joe Rogan's very high on Texas right now and life in Austin.
Well, yeah, he's a newcomer. He's in the honeymoon phase. He'll hate it 2 years from now. I mean, I don't have anything against Texas. It's just anytime you move to a new place, there is a honeymoon period.
Exactly.
All right.
It's a good place to go if you're a multimillionaire for tax reasons.
Well, there's not many places where it's a bad idea to be a multimillionaire. So this is a topic of conversation I've been having with various people. I've been watching a lot of videos and doing research into living internationally as a digital nomad, or sort of nauseatingly, as one guy says, a digital capitalist, or a nomad capitalist. And, if you are a U.S. citizen but you live outside the United States, the federal government still wants, their usual cut of whatever your annual income is, regardless of where you earn it. And so, if you make enough money, that's a fairly strong incentive to renounce your U.S. citizenship. And I've just been asking people, well, you're not a U.S. citizen, so, but I think Canada enjoys a lot of the same perks. There's a lot of places where you can go with no prior arrangement. Just show up at the airport and get a visa.
Yeah, we have you can actually measure the value of a passport in terms of visa-free travel, like how many countries allow visa-free travel for that passport.
Mm-hmm.
So Canada's very high ranking in that respect.
Right. So what would it take for you to give up your Canadian passport?
I would never want. I don't. What's more realistic is for me residency.
Uh-huh.
Establish residency in another country and give up my Canadian residency, because if you're not a Canadian resident, it's a hassle to get back into the national health care plan.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you can't just, like, if I had a serious disease while I was in Taiwan, I couldn't just come back to Canada and immediately get health care. You have to reestablish residency.
I did not know that.
So apparently that's a big factor for people a lot of Canadians spend the winter in Florida, and they need to get back something like there's a day, if once you spend more than 210 days out of Canada, then you enter that zone where it's a hassle to. So they will not leave Canada more than 210 days. So some of them are facing that deadline now because of wanting to avoid the quarantine detainment camp hotels. But for me, that's the main factor. They would have to have a good and affordable healthcare system, so that if bad things happen to me physically, I could get care without breaking the bank.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'd ever want to give up my Canadian passport. For me, that's not just transactional.
Oh, it's patriotic?
Yeah, I feel a degree of, I like some of the ideals of Canada, and I don't know what would be a better trade. Can't think of a better trade. In terms of citizenship.
Yeah. Well, of course.
Maybe again.
I'm not going to give up the privileges of empire. Come on. Why would I do that?
I like countries that have a tradition of resolving their disputes through discussion and elections. The closest we came to political violence in recent times was the FLQ crisis I think it was in the early 70s. But in general, in Canada, we've been pretty good at resolving our disputes through democratic processes. And I think when you have that nonviolent tradition, it's conducive to social welfare and prosperity.
I'm noticing these comments from Parker. He says, I see people on the left saying that it's because of capitalism that the power is going out. People on the right are blaming it on wind turbines. Is nobody blaming it on the weather? Is there no connection between this freak snowstorm and the power outage? Is it coincidence?
Well, I think what they were saying on NPR today as I was driving is that these 100-year storms are now becoming 5 and 10-year storms. So your system, your infrastructure, you can be excused for being taken down by a 100-year storm. But the thing would happen, this polar vortex thing should be factored in by the engineers as an every 5 to 10 year occurrence. I think that's the argument.
Gotcha.
Like when we have major blizzards here in Montreal, and it's like a military operation with the road clearing equipment, and like we're up and running, within 7 hours of the storm.
Well, come on.
Yeah,
we're really good about snow around here too in Vermont.
Yeah.
But you don't expect South Carolina to have all of this stuff at the ready.
No, but what I mean to say is like there's a certain resiliency that needs to be built into the system for rare catastrophic events, but obviously not everyone can be foreseen. We really made our electric grid more resilient after the 1997 ice storm, which was the closest thing to what was the biggest natural disaster that I experienced in my lifetime.
Is that the same ice storm depicted in the Ang Lee movie of the same name?
It may very well be huge towers that were that fell over because of being burdened with ice, and lots of people.
I think that's got to be a weird coincidence because that film came out in 1997, so a storm from 1997 couldn't have been the inspiration.
Good point. There's some good references there for you for future comics of the collapsed hydroelectric towers.
What's a hydroelectric tower?
Well, we have hydroelectricity here, so it's from river dams, very large river dams in far north of Quebec. So we call it hydroelectricity. So they're very, very gargantuan towers that look like giants on the landscape that bring in very high voltage electricity from the north to the cities in the south.
Okay, so you're talking about power lines.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the towers that support them, the towers that support the lines.
Right, but that doesn't have anything specifically to do with hydroelectric power. That's how the electricity is generated at one end of the line. Because, I tried to do a search for hydroelectric tower, and Google says you must mean hydroelectric power.
I have my own personal lingo.
Let's see. So Parker says, I think that under any system there would have been problems because it did not make financial sense to do all the weatherization. No, it doesn't make sense to weatherize Texas. It's cheaper just to fix stuff, every now and again when it breaks. Now, I say that. I'm assuming that. I haven't done the math. I wouldn't know how.
Yeah, there's a lot of political hay that gets made, like I think a lot of blame making that goes on
now
when these events occur.
Of course, the right-wingers exceed the left-wingers in the absurdity of their fantasies. So wind turbines are causing the blackouts. But for the lefties who say capitalism is causing the blackouts, I can stretch that out into a few steps. I mean, you could say that it is capitalism which incentivizes, maximum extraction and usage of fossil fuels, which drives climate change. And then you got to link this storm to climate change, which is impossible to do. But, it's, for somebody on the left who's prone to make that association, they don't need any evidence. You can just say bad weather event, climate change. So I think it's a tenuous and assumption-filled explanation, but at least the left-wing fantasy is slightly less lunatic than the right-wing fantasy. But yeah, people need to plan for extreme weather events, periods of drought, flood, heat, cold. I think municipalities need to think about that stuff. I don't know that individuals need to. I think you'll get a lot of. If you're chuffed by the fact that people are spending money on stuff that they don't need and will never use because it's good for the economy, well then yeah, everybody should prepare for every potential disaster. But in terms of what's actually going to be a useful allocation of resources in the event of an extreme weather event, I don't think that individual households should be the locus of agency. Oh, Benarubber's here. Benarubber asks, what's the weather like in Mexico, Ed? Oh, you probably saw that, didn't you?
Yes, well, Mexico is, of course, has a diverse array of climates, but the area that I was in was delicious.
16C at night, 26C in the day. Oh, you just said it. Yes, it is a tenuous link, but at least there is a tenuous link there to the capitalism caused the blackouts. The wind turbines caused the blackouts. What, because the wind blew too hard and they turned too fast? I would like to see that fleshed out. I'll do a Google search. We'll say wind turbines caused Texas blackouts. Dallas claim, are frozen wind turbines the main cause of Texas's power outages? This claim is false. Governor Greg Abbott of Texas, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, I need more than just the word of the governor. Go to Vice. Now, of course, Vice is hardly an unbiased source. Parker says, how some of the preppers in Texas are faring. I wonder. Can't shoot the cold. All right. Here, check this out. Vice News. No, frozen wind turbines did not cause the Texas blackouts. The false narrative has been picked up by several conservative politicians. On Sunday night, as a massive winter storm hit Texas, Luke Leggett, a publicist for the fossil fuel industry, tweeted a picture of a helicopter de-icing a wind turbine blade. A helicopter running on fossil fuel spraying a chemical made from fossil fuels onto a wind turbine made with fossil fuels during an ice storm is awesome, says Leggett. Well, he's talking like a peak oil person there. Let's see. There was just one problem. The picture Leggett tweeted, and which has been shared tens of thousands of times, was not taken in Texas last weekend, but rather in the Oljabauda mountains in Arjeplog, Sweden, in 2014. That picture and others like it have been repeatedly recycled by climate deniers every time a cold snap has affected the power grid. Over the past few days, millions of Texans have suffered through plunging temperatures, including our friend Paul. I exchanged emails with him this morning. They have continuous power outages. And because they're on well water, he's got to go out and do something manually with the well every time the power comes back on. But over the past few days, millions of Texans have suffered through plunging temperatures and rolling blackouts. While the freezing air has caused some wind turbines to break down, the overwhelming majority of the energy shortfall in the state has come from a massive failure of natural gas production in the state. But why let facts get in the way of a good story? As the narrative that frozen wind turbines were the cause of Texas's rolling blackouts gained traction on social media, conservative lawmakers enthralled to big oil and gas weighed in by spreading the same disinformation. Texas Republican Senator John Cornyn shared the false narrative on Monday. Republican Representative Dan Crenshaw got involved on Tuesday. Oh, yes. Crenshaw's the one with the eye patch. With electricity blackouts across Texas, he tweeted, many are wondering, what happened? How does the energy capital of the United States run out of power? Here's what happened. Thread. Frozen wind turbines. West Texas, where most of the wind energy is focused, had wind turbines that had to be de-iced. The little energy that power regulators planned on wind to supply was now gone. On Facebook, Texas Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller, known for spreading misinformation and amplifying conspiracy theories on social media, simply said, "We should never build another wind turbine in Texas." Some lawmakers outside Texas also got in on the act, with Lauren Boebert, a freshman congresswoman from Colorado who has dabbled in conspiracy theories like QAnon, had her own spin on the theory. Representative Lauren Boebert tweets, "I'm sure Joe Biden is nice and warm in the fossil-fueled White House where he is killing American energy and leaving millions of Texans freezing to death." Yeah, because the whole energy infrastructure in Texas is totally Joe Biden's creation. Montana Republican Senator Steve Daines shared Leggett's tweet on Tuesday saying, "This is a perfect example of the need for reliable energy sources like natural gas and coal." And then somebody named Molly McHugh, blue checkmark on Twitter, writes, "While Texans still desperately need help, the Republican response, fueled by Fox propaganda bullshit, has been to run a massive disinformation campaign to score cheap political points off their radicalized base. This is proof this party prefers to be unfit to govern." These claims were boosted by an op-ed published in the Wall Street Journal on Monday titled "The Deep Green Freeze." In it, the WSJ's famously conservative editorial board argued that, quote, "power shortages show the folly of eliminating natural gas and coal," close quote, before concluding that the, quote, "Biden administration's plan to banish fossil fuels is a greater existential threat to Americans than climate change," close quote. But by Tuesday night, the state's Republican Governor Greg Abbott was bringing the lie that renewable energy was at fault for the blackouts in Texas to a national stage when he appeared on Sean Hannity's show on Fox News. He says, "This shows how the Green New Deal would be a deadly deal for the United States of America," before laying the blame for the blackouts solely on the failure of wind and solar. It should come as no surprise that just like Cornyn, Miller, Daines, Crenshaw, Boebert, the oil and gas industries are among Abbott's biggest donors. The reality is that, yes, some of Texas wind turbines were frozen by the cold weather. That means that at some points in recent days, Texas renewable energy was providing slightly less power to the grid than was predicted by the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, which oversees electricity production in the state. But at other times, over the past few days, wind was actually providing more energy to the grid than ERCOT predictions. That's because wind turbines tend to provide less energy to the grid in winter, and so ERCOT plans for wind to continue a small proportion of the overall energy mix. Contribute. Okay, I see. That's because wind turbines tend to provide less energy to the grid in the winter. So ERCOT plans for wind to contribute a small proportion of the overall energy mix. The majority of Texas' shortfall in energy production that has caused massive blackouts this week didn't come from renewables, but from fossil fuels, with natural gas production seeing the most disruption. Sorry, I gotta refill the lake shift humidifier. So Jesse Jenkins, don't know who he is, but his tweet reads, ERCOT started directing electric utilities like Oncor or Austin Electric to start rolling blackouts or involuntary emergency load shedding at 1:25 a.m. on Monday morning, with 10,500 megawatts shed during that late morning. That's about 2 million homes worth of load. Throughout Monday, many thermal power plants remained offline as freeze-offs and fuel shortages in gas pipelines forced large numbers of natural gas plants offline. Many coal plants likely struggled as well with frozen coal piles. But breakdown of thermal outages by fuel type unclear. Okay. Texas is a gas state, and gas is failing in the most spectacular fashion right now, Michael Weber, an energy resources professor at the University of Texas at Austin, told the Texas Tribune. This assessment was echoed by ERCOT itself. It appears that a lot of the generation that has gone offline today has been primarily due to issues on the natural gas system, Dad Woonfin, a senior director at the agency, said during a Tuesday call with reporters. But such facts don't seem to matter to those keen to continue to profit from the fossil fuel industry, including the Republican lawmakers who receive millions from the oil and gas industry every year. All right. Closing tabs. A very important thing to do.
I have something I wish to share about Vice. I think would be of value to the channel.
Go for it.
Vice was started in my hometown of Montreal. In fact, the people who started it, they are Gen X contemporaries of mine. So there was a recession in the 90s. Both you and I graduated into a recession. And these two guys availed themselves of a government program for unemployed people, like a self-employment program. So they used those funds to create Vice magazine, which was initially just like printed on cheap newspaper. And they grew it into what it is today. Wow. And one of them went on to be the founders of the Proud Boys.
Well, he's not with Vice anymore. That's what's his name? Gavin McInnes.
Yeah, it was Gavin McInnes and the other guy who founded it in 90s recession Montreal.
When I lived in New York City, so 2012 to 2016, I thought Vice was really good. Like, I would turn to it as, a first blush source on news stories that weren't being covered elsewhere. And then it was, I think, just after I moved here to Vermont, I noticed that Vice had turned to emailing out rage bait stories.
Okay.
And that's, when I unsubscribed from their email listing. But, I sort of just, at that point I thought, oh, this is a bad turn. I'm not really interested in what they have to say anymore. So I turned away from them for many months. And then when something brought me back to Vice, to their website, they had changed completely. I mean, they had really gone over to blue MAGA. And this is before Donald Trump was president, but no, I guess this was in the early months of his presidency when they kind of went blue MAGA. But their decline was rapid.
They definitely lean towards the 20-something wannabe hipster. When I see their videos, their journalists are always moderately attractive, unmarried youth trying to up and kick off their journalism career.
Ben Rubber writes, I appreciated them doing a 2-part interview with police about the use of excessive force on YouTube. Oh, well, because it's YouTube, I can't check it out right now. But I'll look for that later. Let's see. Vice interview. Police use of force. All right. I'll check that out a little bit later. Okay, so clearly I'm not getting any drawing done today. There's only 29 minutes left in the stream anyway. Where'd the chat go? There it is. All right, Benarover. That's too bad, says Parker. I mean, in general, I agree. The Republicans are nuts, but it doesn't justify going nuts in response. Anyway, they used to do actual reporting. I can't say that they don't do actual reporting now. I'd say a lot of their decline has been editorial, not on the reporting side. But, one feeds into the other, of course.
Are you noticing that the quality of sunlight is stronger? There's more solar radiation on the skin?
As opposed to, like, earlier in the year?
Well, in December and January, I found the sunlight to be quite weaker.
Huh.
But now, coming around by mid-February, for me, these are one of the early signs of spring. One of the earliest signs is that the sunlight is hitting the earth more directly, and it feels stronger. It has more solar radiation power because it's hitting the earth more obliquely at around the winter solstice.
What I've noticed is that my cat comes and wakes me up earlier each day because the sun comes up earlier and she doesn't look at clocks. So I am forced to adjust my own schedule according to the rising of the sun.
Does she wake you up so that you can feed her?
I don't know what her deal is. She just wants me up. Maybe she's lonely. I mean, I do give her a treat when I come into the kitchen in the morning, but she often leaves it on the plate. So I don't know. She just doesn't like me sleeping in the daylight. Venerable writes, perpendicular is the biggest factor in absorbing light rays of the sun, right? I do not know.
Well, because the Earth is on a 23-degree angle in relation to its rotation around the sun. I mean, it would be easier for me to draw that for you than to use words to explain it. but because of that angle, we get the seasons, and as we move further away from the winter solstice, the sunlight hits us more direct on, so we get more solar radiation per surface area, per any given surface, let's say per meter squared. And that peaks on June 21st. So it's getting stronger every day because the angle is more direct versus at around December, it's glancing. It's yeah.
Parker writes,
it's like if you took a flashlight.
Go ahead.
If you took a flashlight and shone it on something on an angle, it would spread out the beam into an ellipse, and that light would be spread out over a larger area. But if you point it straight down, it makes more of a perfect circle, and there's
right.
The same amount of light is on a smaller area, so it's stronger.
More photons per cubic centimeter, or I guess per square centimeter.
There you go. There you go.
So, Parker writes, I did not like the tone of that article you read. So, I've already closed the tab, but Parker, I think what you're noticing is this is the exact same editorial change that has taken place over at NPR. Before Trump, even in a very slanted article, they wouldn't tell you explicitly what opinion you were supposed to have. I mean, they would present the information such that you were most likely to draw the conclusion that they want you to draw, but they don't leave that to chance anymore. It's probably multiple outlets, but the ones that I pay attention to, mostly NPR, but I've also noticed it in Vice, is that they include in the text the attitude you're supposed to take and the conclusions you are supposed to draw. And, they basically just tell you, look, if you don't draw the conclusion that we want you to draw, you're deplorable. You're awful. I mean, you're just in the company of lunatics. And fascists, of course. Can't forget the fascists or the Nazis.
I also noticed there's a lot more emotional inflection. Some of the journalists on NPR, they report with emotional inflection that normally in the past the standard was more to try to be somewhat neutral.
Yeah, dispassionate.
But there's a lot more there's a lot more wringing of hands. You can hear that in the voice.
Yes. Right. Like if the voice, like in the past, if somebody, if their voice quavered, if it was a reporter or an announcer and their voice quavered, they might re-record. I think the reverse is true now. A dispassionate read would be like, could you read this again with some more anxiety? I'm not getting enough anxiety off of this.
Particularly bad at that, because I feel I should be allowed to make my own judgment about the goodness or badness of the thing that's being presented to me.
Well, that's because you're a Nazi.
Well, I would suggest to you that perhaps there's a structural problem.
No, you're just a Nazi. You're just a vile, deplorable. You're a white supremacist and patriarchist and fascist.
I'd like to submit the following for your consideration.
I reject it.
Perhaps
I pre-reject it.
Okay.
No, go ahead.
Here's what I think happened is that they determined that Trump and his administration were actively putting out lies and falsehoods. Like there were many journalism outfits that would count the mistruths, or they had the pants on fire o-meter. Yeah. And that because journalism is supposed to be dedicated to uncovering the truth. I mean, that they felt that they had to rise to the challenge of responding to a torrent of falsehoods, so that it was they could no longer just be neutrally reconveying press releases from the White House, but because by their determination there was so much falsehoods being put out that they had to actively counter them. And I would think that has a lot to do with the change of tone, that they decided that they needed to go into activist journalism mode.
Yep, they sure have. So Ben Rubber writes, he's talking about the wobble of the planet and how we're on a 22,000 year cycle, and that correlates with ice ages, and that we're overdue for an ice age. And there was a book, a science fiction novel by Larry Niven and Jerry Pournelle. Oh, and Michael Flynn. I didn't realize there were 3 authors. This is from the 80s. This is from, let's see. Published October 1st, 2002? No. First published 1991. That seems more likely. Okay. And in it, there's an ice age taking place on Earth. And there are some space habitats where people are living, and the United States in particular has fallen under an anti-technological mindset. And these 2 astronauts, or pilots who lived in these habitats, they would have to skim the Earth's atmosphere to collect oxygen from time to time. And politicians on Earth blamed the space habitat, denizens skimming off a little bit of air for the ice age. And so one of these vessels gets shot down, and a bunch of science fiction fans, and science fiction fans are persecuted in this world because of the general anti-science vibe. A bunch of science fiction fans get together to rescue these 2 astronauts, these 2 fallen angels. And in it, there are cities where the ice age is held at bay, and there's a warm climate because they're just burning so much fossil fuel. So basically, Larry Niven is saying, yay fossil fuels, yay science fiction fans, boo environmentalists, and boo fantasy fans. It's a pretty fun novel. So let's see. Marina Fontaine, who I do not know, writes, edit, I've been quoting and recommending this book a lot since I read it, which means I liked it more than I originally thought. Therefore, I added an extra star. And she writes, this book is both fun and depressing. Fun because of quirky characters and snappy dialogue. Depressing because of the setup. Humanity, in particular the United States, having turned their back on technology, is fighting a losing battle against an ice age. The government writes off whole regions and populations, spending resources instead on persecuting fans of science fiction as subversives. In different hands, this premise could create a dystopia in some ways bleaker than 1984. Instead, the cautionary tale is simply the backdrop for what is best described as a caper novel. A group of ragtag misfits staying one step ahead of the law. It's not a page-turner, but I found it enjoyable. I find it hard to imagine the government coalition described here, Greens, feminists, and Christians, ? Okay, but Greens are the main baddies, at least that we get to see. There are a couple of scenes toward the end that literally had my jaw dropping. If I were a feminist, I would get hopping mad. Since I'm not, it was just hilarious and satisfying. I will definitely be checking out all three authors separately. I've only read one book by Michael Flynn to see what kind of stuff they write on their own. So Larry Niven and Jerry Pournelle have written many books together, including one called Lucifer's Hammer, which is about civilization basically being destroyed by a huge comet strike. Let's see. So Parker's talking about ospreys returned to his area in mid to late February. That was his experience back when he was out there to see them. Parker says, I was thinking they should be saving all the cold in Texas, if that was possible. They will need it later. Yeah, they sure will. They'll need it in July. The wobbling top aspect of the planet's rotation cycles every 22,000 years. Yep. KMO, you should make a video listing your top sci-fi books. Oh, okay. Yeah. Huh. That's a good idea, Parker. We'll give that some thought. Ice Age Farmer talks about the grand solar minimum. I don't know if that has anything to do with the 3 cycles. He has a wiki on it. Galileo's Dream. Who's the author of that?
That's by Kim Stanley Robinson.
Oh, well, then it's got to be good.
There's a part in it where Galileo is given an education by an AI education. Like they bring him into the future around the 2400s, and he's like, well, catch me up on the state of science. Like, I want to know. So he's given a special drug that opens up his mind, and then he's directly interfaced with to teach him about everything that's happened in physics since the 1600s. And Kim Stanley Robinson goes into the future, he imagines the development of physics from our time up to the 2300s. And I found that to be a real tour de force, that somebody could imagine the progress of a field, and it's all quite plausible and mind-blowing about how physics progresses over the next 300 years from our time.
Yeah, I mean, that's quite a feat for a writer, because he has to invent the new physics and set it down side by side with established physics.
Yes.
There's their whole space opera hand wave. It's like, artificial gravity plating and hyperdrive, and away we go. Let's have an adventure story. But to talk about educating Galileo, to bring him from a Renaissance level understanding of science to a modern understanding of science, and then say, and from there, here's where we go. That's a very different project.
Yeah.
From Galileo's heresy trial to the politics of far future Jupiter, Kim Stanley Robinson illuminates the parallels between a distant past and an even more remote future, in the process celebrating the human spirit and calling into question the convenient truths of our own moment in time. Nice. I will click want to read. There we go.
I listened to it on audiobook. It was throughout the summer. It was the highlight of my summer. So you can get it on audiobook.
Okay. No, Oh, and CF Puff is in the is listening. So that's Center for Progressive Urban Politics. I believe that is Kevin Lynn. Or I doubt he would. He's got operational security. He's not going to walk away from the keyboard and let somebody else post as him. So that'll be Kevin. Hey, Kevin, how you doing? Yeah. So, man, top Did you say top 10 or just favorite? Favorite, okay. I think Book of the New Sun is going to be way up there. Technically, it's 5 books, but, you know, in the house. Let's see. So, Kevin, I hope you were at the end of your travel and that it was all without a hitch. Let's see. Book of the New Sun. You know, if I'm going to talk about, you know, how books affected me, the stuff that I read in my teenage years is going to be really powerful. You know, stuff like Robert Heinlein, Stranger in a Strange Land. Yeah, Larry Niven novels like, you know, Ringworld and The Smoke Ring, that sort of thing. But then later on, you know, the really towering stuff, a lot of it's going to be from Kim Stanley Robinson. I love his ability to, you know, not gloss over hard truths, but to still find a way to find a, you know, optimistic take on the future. What else? Oh, probably Dan Simmons' books, the Hyperion Cantos, or whatever that whole series is called, and also Ilium and Olympus. You know those books, Ed?
I do not know those books.
Dan Simmons is a guy who can write in many genres. Like, he writes historical fiction, he writes detective fiction, but he also writes some really killer sci-fi. And probably his best known stuff is the Hyperion Chronicles. What do they call it? Hyperion, I'm going to say Dan Simmons. Hyperion Cantos. The Hyperion Cantos is a series of science fiction novels by Dan Simmons. The title was originally used for the collection of the first pair of books in the series, Hyperion and the Fall of Hyperion, and later came to refer to the overall storyline, including Endymion and the Rise of Endymion. So it's 4 books. Okay. And a number of short stories. More narrowly inside the fictional storyline, after the first volume, the Hyperion Cantos is an epic poem written by the character of Martin Silenus, covering in verse form the events of the first book. Of the 4 novels, Hyperion received the Hugo and Locus Awards in 1990, The Fall of Hyperion won the Locust and British Science Fiction Association Awards in 1991, and The Rise of Endymion received the Locus Award in 1998. All 4 novels were nominated for various science fiction awards. Yeah, very good stuff. Very literate science fiction. These are the things that leap to mind immediately. You know, of course, there's Philip K. Dick. But so much of his stuff I read in my teenage years, and I can't really parse out, you know, with this much distance between me and the reading, you know, how much was good writing and how much was me just really digging it in my teenage years and, you know, not being very sophisticated in my tastes. Sometimes scary to revisit the, you know, our youthful favorites. All right, what else we got in the chat? Ed, you're doing double duty. You're typing and talking. Let's see. The physics of the future, yeah, would be over my head too. I'm not afraid to admit that. Please consider participating in the above comics festival. Yes, Dan Simmons did write The Terror. Let's see. Call for entries, 2021 programming. It's once again time to start thinking about our programming lineup for the Montreal Comic Arts Festival. As always, we invite members of the public and professionals to propose your ideas and to actively participate in the creation and running of the programming for the festival. Panels, discussions, workshops, interviews, and more. Let us know your ideas and send us your proposals. We're all ears. This year, the festival will be held on the 28th, 29th, and 30th of May. The majority of programming this year will be held online. Of course it will. Activities generally last between 30 minutes and 1.5 hours. MCAF offers financial remuneration for moderators and participants. If you have any questions, please reach out. Well, What sort of proposal should I propose?
You should say how I used YouTube live streaming how I combined YouTube live streaming with producing my comic book, Geb.io.
So I can share my distracted state with the world. Let's see.
It's a hot topic.
I thought that the something else part was unnecessary. What's Parker talking about here? An odd combination of historic fiction and something else. So I have not read The Terror. I can't comment on the content of that book. Is that about the abominable snowman? The Terror is a 2007 novel by American author Dan Simmons. It is a fictionalized account of the Captain Sir John Franklin's lost expedition on HMS Erebus and HMS Terror to the Arctic. Oh, okay. He did a different one, I think, about the abominable snowman. Oh, it's just called Abominable. All right. Let's see. What are you doing, Ed? The Abominable.
I apologize. I should mute. I was putting the bag of corn chips into the pantry, or as you would call it, a cupboard.
I understand pantry.
It was for the ASMR effect.
Well, it's a little too jarring for ASMR, I think. Well, hey, while Kevin's on the line, I've got something funny to show him. I mean, y'all have seen it. You've watched me make it. So there's Derek stretched around his armature, but no disguise. And there he is in his disguise. Beard from Life of Brian. Straw fedora, I think, was Dina's idea. Shades. Going with the curly wig, going with the ZZ Top look. Awesome, says CF Pup. Uh-oh, we're talking about Mystery Science Theater 3000. Parker never got into it. I was into it when I was in college in the 90s. Alrighty. I haven't seen any of the newer stuff. I haven't seen any of the 21st century MST3K. Ed, were you ever a fan?
I was aware of it peripherally, and I watched Babylon 5 quite a bit, and there was a character in there who I think was in Mystery Science Theater. He was also a spice-addicted mentat in the David Lynch Dune movie.
Oh.
Sometimes what happens is these actors, once they do a science fiction, they get pinned as like a science fiction guy, and then they appear in a bunch of different...
So that actor played Grima Wormtongue in The Two Towers. And he was in Alien Resurrection. He was also on Star Trek Voyager. What is that guy's name?
Yes. He's sort of thin and pale and a little bit creepy looking.
Yeah. Brad Dourif is his name.
Was he in Mystery Science Theater?
I don't know. That would be news to me. So let's try that.
I think he's quite a compelling actor.
But yeah, kind of a limited range. Huh. I'd be surprised if he was actually a regular on the show. Well, let's go back to the chat. No further explanation. Oh, what's everyone think of Mystery Science Theater 3000? I thought it was cute. And, cute's not dismissive. What's his name? Slaughterhouse 5, Cat's Cradle.
Kurt
Vonnegut, right. Kurt Vonnegut really had a bug up his butt about it. He said, for all of those bad movies that you like to mock, some inexperienced writer got paid for that. That was a paying job for somebody who was trying to establish themselves as an author. And I kind of get where he's coming from, but still, it's fun to watch bad movies and, have a good time making jokes at the bad film's expense. Yep, great way to watch C horror films. Yeah. Just last night, I rewatched Avengers Age of Ultron, which I remember being very disappointed by when I saw it in the theater, and which I, never rewatched again and just dismissed it as kind of a missed opportunity or, a rare MCU misstep. And it holds up really well. I mean, I enjoyed it more on the rewatch last night than I did initially. Because, obviously there was going to be no disappointment. I didn't think much of it going into it. But that film got a bad rap. And I don't know why. All right. Well, I'll leave that open. Hey, it is 4:59. So, Ed, I'm going to shut down the call first and then the stream.
Thank you for this chit chat.
Well, thanks for the slideshow and the travel stories.
Very good. I'm leaving you with the CBC Radio Ideas Show about cult movies.
Right on. All right. Talk to you soon.
Be well, friend.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Alrighty. And now for everybody else, I'm shutting down the live stream. I'll be back tomorrow.